The blood hadn't stopped dripping when Lieutenant Commander Callista Cal Thorne did her 47th push-up on the cracked ceramic spine of an instructor's cultural heritage monument, which she'd accidentally shattered by sneezing too, hard during the stretching phase. Galactic Military Academy Day 1, and the welcome brochure had not mentioned that most alien floors were calibrated for species that didn't have joints forged by bar fights, childbirth, and Hell Week. The Yad. Air tasted like burnt printer ink and panic. Across the stadium-sized training dome, lined with confused arthropods, vibrating diplomats, and at least one guy in a robe doing interpretive bureaucracy, Cal rose from her plank position, casually dusted off her tactical knee pads, and muttered, "Stretching complete. Now where's the part where someone regrets hiring me?" That regret came wearing 15 pounds of ceremonial carapace, 6 eyes too smug for their own exoskeleton, and a nameplate that actually read, "Snarglefitz the Merciless, he/him, hierarchical. Instructor Snarglefitz, all pincers and unearned." Confidence clicked his mandibles. "Human. You will submit to planetary standard orientation protocols. Begin by reciting the Treaty of Cross-Species Integration." Cal blinked, wiped a streak of blood from her eyebrow, and said, "Sure. Article 1. Thou shalt not bore Navy SEALs with paperwork unless you're trying to die of sarcasm." The translator glitched. Half the recruits gasped. One blue jelly student exploded. Snarglefitz tried again. "You are expected to display compliance with regulation posture standards during this briefing." Cal leaned back, squatted, popped her knee, and grinned. "Buddy, I'm already being polite by not correcting your posture. I've seen houseplants with more spine." Snarglefitz, choosing violence, triggered the first test. A blast door dropped. The orientation arena activated. The holograms screamed, "Mild threat simulation," and materialized holographic attackers designed to simulate low-intensity conflict. Cal's eyes lit up like a demolition charge at a bureaucrat's retirement party. "Oh, good," she said, cracking her knuckles. "They brought the easy mode." 2 minutes later, the simulation was declared emotionally destabilizing. The arena walls had 3 new holes in the shape of a human boot print, and the AI psychologist running the exercise filed for leave under existential embarrassment. Snarglefitz approached, twitching. "You are outside of parameter expectation." Cal sat on a smoking rubble pile and took a sip from her hydration pouch labeled "Regret," then gave a one-shouldered shrug. "I was told this was elite training. I thought we'd be doing something, useful, not interpretive flailing and reciting space laws written by committee lizards with tenure." Then came the moment, the one that detonated the collective faith of 17 galactic departments of orderly protocol. A diplomat floated in, clearly an observer, clearly important, judging by his holographic sash reading Undersecretary of Standardized Threat Assessments. He asked politely, "Human, would you kindly refrain from excessive violence during cultural acclimatization exercises?" Cal smiled, leaned forward, and with the energy of a soccer mom about to sue a PTA, replied, "Only if your version of restraint includes spontaneous disassembly. Otherwise, no promises." And then, to demonstrate her point, she dropped into a push-up position and did 5 more. Through a laser grid labeled, "Do not penetrate without high command clearance." The security system short-circuited. Alarms went off in 6 languages. The phrase "protocol breach" echoed through the halls like an unpaid invoice. Across the galaxy, 100 training satellites pinged red. Cal stood up, brushing dust off her glutes like she was at a casual cookout. "Was that the part where I acclimated? Or should I do it again but backwards and with finger guns?" Somewhere deep within the Galactic Council's AI bureaucracy, a file was quietly created. It was labeled, "Subject, Human Cal Thorne, Possible Containment or Worship." And with that, the galaxy met its worst-case scenario, a Navy SEAL with joints that didn't care about gravity, and absolutely no idea how to behave during a light orientation. The first explosion wasn't her fault, probably, though in her defense, nobody told Cal that the Academy's standard-issue training mat was wired with 5 layers of motivational shock triggers and an auto-eject feature for students deemed excessively combative, which apparently included anyone who backhanded a drone while quoting Die Hard. So when she landed on her back in the hallway with smoke rising from her boots and a training bot embedded in the ceiling like a futuristic ceiling fan, Cal just muttered, 10 out of 10, would re-enroll, and walked off like her kneecaps weren't singing the national anthem of regret. By day 2, the galaxy had collectively decided she was not, in fact, a cultural ambassador in training, but rather some kind of bipedal, warning label sent to test the durability of their insurance policies. She was placed in the maximum conditioning gauntlet, usually reserved for hyper-titanium death machines and emotionally stunted war clones. The gauntlet itself looked like a blender had a grudge against logic. Blades whirred, plasma arcs hummed with passive-aggressive menace, and something in the corner cackled every time someone failed to clear the meat grinder wall. Cal, of course, walked into it like she was browsing a mall, muttering, "Ooh, this one has a murder feature," as a giant pendulum swung past her head with all the grace of a bureaucrat on deadline. Halfway through, she took a plasma blast to the shoulder, rolled through electrified gravel, and still found time to give a thumbs up to the horrified observers. "Y'all charge tuition for this, or is pain complimentary?" she asked, teeth clenched, boots sparking, one eyebrow singed into a shape that said, "Bring it." 17 minutes and 1 flying guillotine later, she emerged charred, panting, and humming the Marine Corps hymn through a bloody nose. A crystalline cadet named Galimp fainted. Instructor Snarglefitz choked on his nutrient gel and had to be Heimlicked by a startled octopus. The data logs marked her performance as unquantifiable, which prompted 3 statisticians to resign and 1 to start drinking jet fuel recreationally. That evening, as Cal sat on the smoking remains of what had once been the Academy's caffeine dispenser, she'd punched it after it talked back, a wiry alien administrator with 17 arms and even fewer coping mechanisms approached, holding a trembling clipboard. "Lieutenant Commander Thorne, we've received several formal complaints from planetary governments." Cal sipped the scalding black sludge she'd salvaged from the wreckage and raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. They don't like the fact I did cardio through their death trap?" The administrator blinked all 17 eyes asynchronously. "No. They're requesting a formal reassessment of human combat potential. Several have filed something called a species reclassification motion." Cal smirked. "Huh, that's adorable. What were we before?" The administrator cleared his throat. "A Category 7 peace-compatible primate derivative." Cal spat her drink so hard it took paint off the wall. Primates? Buddy, I once broke a guy's femur with a flip-flop in sarcasm. We're a walking crisis with gym memberships. The next morning, the Academy deployed a new instructor. His name was Blorgath. He didn't shake hands. He folded tanks. Blorgath was what happened when you let an insect fight God and win. Half mantis, half gunrack, all hostility. "Full lethal assessment," he rasped. "No safeties, no med bay, no crying." Cal nodded, rolling her neck. "You had me at lethal. I brought snacks." What followed was not a sparring match. It was a cosmic lawsuit waiting to happen. Blorgath moved like a tractor on fast forward, swinging plasma axes, and quoting ancient kill rites in his native language. Cal ducked, weaved, got punched through a wall, then bit him, hard, on the neck joint. "That's for calling me fragile flesh bag," she snarled, as she rode his back like a rodeo contestant, with a grudge against science. It took 17 minutes, 1 crushed observation platform, and a collision with a hover forklift, before both combatants collapsed in a pile of mutual violence and protein-based respect. Blorgath lay twitching. Cal lay grinning. Medical drones hovered, took 1 look at her vitals, and quietly backed away. Across the galaxy, command centers blinked, Politicians fumbled with threat assessments. Holographic screens replayed her battle in slow motion, highlighting every drop of blood, every sarcastic eye roll mid-fist fight, every casual shrug while being electrocuted. And still, the human kept going, fueled by muscle memory, grudge, power, and the simmering rage of someone once denied a raise for being too intimidating. News spread. Embassies panicked, cultures prayed. A fluffy ambassador from the Coalition of Tranquil Spheres fainted mid-briefing when told she was probably one of the softer ones. And Cal? Cal just popped her dislocated shoulder back into place with a wince and muttered, "That better not have been the mid-boss." There was a moment, just one, crisp, sterile moment, where the entire galaxy collectively held its breath, right around the time Lieutenant Commander Cal Thorne spit blood onto the ceremonial floor of the Galactic Tactical Council chamber and muttered, "You call that a death match? I've had worse in a Texas bar with 3 pool cues and a gluten-free bachelorette party." That moment didn't just shatter protocol. It kicked it down the stairs, shaved its eyebrows, and stapled a post-it to its chest that read, "Rethink your life choices." The Council, a sanctimonious pile of blinking robes and pulsing egos, had gathered in crisis mode after the Blorgath incident. Capital letters fully deserved. The footage alone had gone viral across 7 species who didn't even have a word for viral yet. Replays showed Cal laughing while impaled, mocking her opponent mid-suplex, and casually performing a takedown that defied the laws of physics, anatomy, and polite diplomacy. The incident had sparked what was now being officially termed a contingency reassessment situation, or unofficially, what the hell did we admit? And now, here she was, sitting cross-legged on a levitating tribunal disc, drinking recycled hydration fluid like it was whiskey, and mentally rating each alien official based on whether they looked more like food, cartoon villains, or someone who'd cry during basic training. The grand strategist of the consortium, a vaguely fungal entity named Spose, oozed forward. "Human, Thorne, your species was classified as low threat, emotionally unstable, and evolutionarily disposable. Explain yourself." Cal blinked slowly. "Cool. And how's that working out for you so far?" The tribunal murmured. A Slarvian historian dropped his data slate. The psychic interpreter actually whimpered. "Perhaps," hissed a lizard diplomat from the Virex Ascendancy, "you are not representative. Perhaps you are an anomaly." Cal grinned and cracked her neck with an audible pop that made several gelatinous species recoil. "Y'all think I'm the scary one?" She leaned forward, her voice dropping like a sniper round in molasses. "Buddy, I'm mid-tier. I know construction workers who treat nail guns like back-scratchers. I've seen Midwestern moms throw shoes with ballistic accuracy. My cousin Becky once arm-wrestled a bear because it looked at her funny during camping. I'm not your outlier. I'm your baseline with better dental." Somewhere in the corner, a tactical analyst had a minor seizure. Doctrines shattered. The Neutrino Council started whispering something about species reclassification to Oh God Run. That's when the panic started. Real panic. Military intelligence across 17 systems began urgently requesting human population statistics, endurance profiles, psychological tolerance curves, theories on what could create a being who smiled while fighting Blorgath, and requested seconds. The numbers came in. 8.7 billion. With 1.2 million military personnel, not counting the ones who weren't officially sanctioned. The word sanctioned was redefined that day to include anyone who voluntarily drank gas station coffee. In the panic, they dug deeper. Human training rituals, Navy SEAL selection, Ranger school, boot camp again, but with sharks, snow, and screaming. Some intern played footage of a tough mutter race on the main screen, mislabeling it as primitive tribal warfare. Several species initiated preemptive peace treaties immediately. Even worse was when they accessed Earth's cultural database and found pro-wrestling, action movies, and a genre called metalcore. The council convened an emergency subcommittee just to review lyrics. Cal, still lounging like a hungover goddess of tactical heresy, picked at her shoulder wound and said, "So, does this mean we're not doing the obstacle course today?" That's when Instructor Blorgath, bandaged, limping, but newly respectful, limped into the chamber and declared, "Let her finish the course." Chaos, outrage, screaming in 17 frequencies. Spores exploded into spores. An emergency vote was called but lost quorum when half the delegates suddenly remembered urgent religious obligations. And still, Cal stood up, tied her hair back into a brutal little knot and said, "You're all missing the point. It's not about me surviving your tests. It's about you realizing you've never actually had one before." That line, that exact phrase, was replayed in war rooms across the stars. Because they weren't scared of what she'd done, they were terrified she was right. That this one, bloody, sarcastic woman had exposed the illusion of security the galaxy had been living under for centuries. That their tests were games, their training, theater, their armies, polite suggestions in matching uniforms. Cal wasn't chaos, she was calibration, and now nothing felt safe anymore. They didn't give her a medal. They gave her a warning sign and built a shrine around the crater where she'd uppercut a wall-mounted drone so hard it achieved low orbit, which would have been flattering if the plaque underneath hadn't read, "Please don't provoke the Earthling." Cal Thorne took it as a compliment, the same way she took most things, sarcastically while duct-taping her own injuries and judging galactic architecture for its lack of snack storage. The Council, still reeling from the crisis she accidentally became, attempted damage control in the only way bureaucracies know how: PowerPoints, fear, and mandatory breakfast briefings. She sat through one such session, flanked by jittery aides, with diplomatic immunity and a rapidly yellowing fruit tray. The first slide read, "Project Deflector, Diplomatic Earthling Field Liaison for Emergency Containment, Tactical Observation, and Regret." Cal raised her hand. "You misspelled containment as hope you brought a medkit." No one laughed. Someone from the Slarvian Compliance Office began quietly weeping into his stack of incident waivers. That's when the proposal dropped: human integration into interstellar leadership. Not because they wanted her, not because she was trained, but because, bless their protein-starved hearts, they were scared not to. Cal was offered a new role, Earth's official military liaison to the Galactic Council, a symbol of cooperation, diplomacy, and if necessary, applied trauma. "So, like a space bodyguard with sarcasm?" she asked, twirling a stylus like it might double as a throwing weapon. "More like a deterrent." "Cool. Can I have a uniform?" "We were thinking robes." "I was thinking flamethrower gauntlets." The robes were quietly incinerated in transport. From that point on, the real escalation began. Other species, previously content with ceremonial training and motivational oaths, started demanding Earth-standard instruction. "We wish to endure what the Earth female has endured," a crystalline lifeform announced, proudly duct-taped. Back together after merely observing Cal's last grappling match. "We crave the pain and the protein shakes." Academies across the quadrant scrambled to adapt. Obstacle courses were retrofitted to include insults. Endurance trials now had emotional trauma built in. One facility even built a mom simulator that glared judgmentally at you until your soul folded. Morale went up. Injury rates skyrocketed. No one knew what was happening anymore, but they knew one thing for sure: the age of polite galactic training was over. Meanwhile, Cal was receiving requests, actual, official, laminated requests to teach. As in, please take our fragile, jelly-bodied citizens and make them war-compatible. Her first class was eventful. "Lesson 1, she said, addressing a group of 17 species, 4 of which were vibrating in terror. Pain is a good teacher, but sarcasm is a better motivator. She threw a weighted insult at a 6-legged crab thing named Borpley. Your combat stance looks like a tax accountant having a nervous breakdown in 0G. Borpley cried, then won the obstacle course. Cal didn't stop. She trained them harder. She trained them dumber. She trained them like someone who once bench-pressed spite during a hurricane. And somehow, it worked. They grew faster, meaner, louder. By the 3rd week, a normally peaceful ambassador head-butted a gravity chamber door and shouted, "4! Earth's honor and pain!" Cal just nodded. He's ready. But all of it, the chaos, the fear, the drills, it culminated in the thing she hadn't expected. They invited her back to the council. Not as a threat, not as a warning, but as a speaker, a symbol of unified force evolution. She laughed so hard she dropped a plasma kettle on a Slarvian foot and apologized only after checking if it would bounce. You want me to talk? About unity. I nearly killed a guy with a folding chair yesterday. Exactly, said the coordinator, trembling slightly. They listened to you. So Cal stood, center stage in a floating hall that smelled like ozone and overpriced optimism, looking down at thousands of eyes, lenses, and sensory stalks, all waiting, watching. She took a deep breath, adjusted her scorched tactical vest, and said, "You all used to think humans were emotional, irrational, volatile. That's fair. We are. But we're also the species that laughs while bleeding, hugs after combat, and treats fire as a learning opportunity." She paced, slow and deliberate. You thought discipline meant following rules. It doesn't. It means knowing which ones to break when survival's on the line. You thought combat was about force. It's not. It's about refusing to lose. She held up her bandaged hand and flexed it. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because we can't imagine not standing up. We train in chaos, eat stress for breakfast, and redefine fear as cardio. Silence. Then a roar. Or the galactic equivalent. A pulsating wave of noise, light, and applause so intense it set off 2 fire suppression systems. Cal just smirked, popped her shoulder back in, and muttered, "Let's see him laminate that." It all came to a head the moment someone, specifically a very important tentacle with a PhD in galactic diplomacy, uttered the phrase, "Let's make her the poster child for peaceful deterrence." Cal had been mid-bite into a ration bar, so dense it legally qualified as a small moon, and she froze, chewed twice, then laughed so hard she nearly choked. Me? Peaceful deterrence? Buddy, I've had restraining orders filed by gym equipment. But it was too late. The council voted, the title was drafted, and before she could object properly, which would have involved flipping a table and quoting Sun Tzu incorrectly on purpose, she was assigned a shuttle, a ceremonial sash made of questionable fibers, and a security detail consisting of 2 cowardly robots and a floating blob named Trevor. Her first mission as Unified Galactic Peace Liaison was to a volatile neutral zone where 2 neighboring empires were teetering on the edge of war over, of course, a snack tray misunderstanding. Cal arrived, stepped off the ship, and was immediately confronted by 27 angry delegates, all yelling over each other in various frequencies, smells, and hand gestures. One shoved a treaty in her face. Another fired a warning shot at the ceiling. One especially bold amphibian tried to lecture her on ethical diplomacy. Cal listened, stared, popped her neck, and calmly pulled out her field baton labeled mildly persuasive. You got 60 seconds to shut up and sit down before I start solving this the human way, she said, voice calm, terrifying, bored. One delegate fainted. 2 others fell into an involuntary meditation state. 10 seconds later, the table was silent, the room tense, and the peace talks underway. With Cal sitting backwards on a hover chair, sipping black coffee like it owed her money. "Rule 1, she said. If your ego is bigger than your defense budget, sit down and shut up. Rule 2, Earth survived reality TV and pineapple on pizza. We can survive you. Rule 3, I do not negotiate with beings who use the word vis-a-vis unironically." 6 minutes later, the treaty was signed. 4 ambassadors needed therapy. 1 asked her to adopt their son. And Galactic News labeled it the fastest ceasefire since the great miscommunication of Sector 88. The Council tried to celebrate by giving her a medal. She used it to open a can of tactical chili. Back at the Academy, students now trained under the new Earth-adjacent protocols, obstacle courses that insulted you, simulations where the enemy was your own self-doubt, and physical drills that began with "Let's pretend gravity hates you personally." The number of applicants skyrocketed. So did the rate of instructors resigning via written note and mild sobbing. Cal visited one of the newer training domes, watched as a 3-eyed cadet dragged itself through barbed energy fields, gritting its mandibles and growling, "Thorne said pain is character development." Cal smiled. And for the first time, it looked almost gentle. She didn't say anything. Just walked the perimeter, quietly fixing a loose panel and muttering, "Sloppy wiring kills faster than plasma." Then came the final report. Not from Earth, not from the Council, but from an independent alliance of galactic observers who had, for decades, categorized species by behavioral risk. The report was 1 line, projected in 12 dimensions, across every known sector. Earth, reclassified, do not provoke. If encountered, offer snacks and back away slowly. It was accompanied by a grainy surveillance clip of Cal doing push-ups in a crater, bleeding slightly, muttering, "This the warm-up, or do you have something with teeth?" That clip was played at military briefings for years. It became the unofficial anthem of the New Order, not because humans were violent, but because they were willing to bleed, willing to laugh, willing to endure hell and come out, whistling with a limp and a sarcastic slogan on their shirt. Cal Thorne, meanwhile, declined most interviews. She spent her time in the far side of the Academy, building something called the Hurt Locker 2.0, an arena so intense it came with its own waiver and a snack bar. When asked why she kept training, why she didn't just sit back and bask, in legend, she shrugged. "I'm not the end of Earth's story. I'm the asterisk." And then, grinning, she added, "Also, I promised a cadet I'd teach him how to weaponize eye contact." Somewhere, on a quiet, peaceful moon with no history of conflict, a new alien cadet touched down for training, saw the caution signs, heard the rumors, and laughed. How bad can one human really be? Inside, Cal cracked her knuckles, smiled, and whispered, "Let's find out."